welcome back. We're going to take a look today at a concept that will help you when you go to draw your character for your story, and that is to look at anything that you want to draw in terms of this character. It could be maybe your story is about a cat, or maybe it's about a person, or maybe it's about a dragon. It wouldn't matter. Whatever you are going to draw, the underlying structure of that thing is made up of basic shapes. And so I want to show you that concept right now with a cat. And you're going to see it there on the screen. And if you take a look at that cat, he's made up of an oval, a circle, two triangles, and two smaller ovals, his eyes. And let's see if I can draw that cat using that system of those basic shapes. So first I'm going to draw the oval for his head, and you can draw along with me if you'd like. And I'm using a gray crayon because I'm going to make my cat gray. And then I'm going to draw another circle right here, and notice something, that this circle extends a little below the oval. Oops, I'm getting a little off the camera here. There's that. And then there's a triangle that's about in the middle, oh no, upper part of this circle. And there's an imaginary line, and I'm just going to draw my imaginary lines that come up from the edge of the nose, that kind of come up sort of right here. And the ovals for the eyes are kind of an angle, so they're not horizontal, they're kind of tilted a little bit. And then his ears are triangles with rounded tops. Okay, so there's my cat. He's a little bit demonic looking here. And then I'm going to color in, and sort of, you can see that I could go in and color in his mouth area, and then I could come back with some pink for his nose, and I could then take his little, with black, I could outline where his mouth is, put some little dots in here, and I've got whisker spots where the whiskers grow out. Those are always fun to add in. And we're going to make him have green eyes. I've had cats with green eyes, so he's got some really, he's a really like alien cat or something here. And we're going to add some more fur. And if you've heard the other parts of this video, I talk about that when you go to color things in, you might want to think about the way that the fur grows on a cat, and not just color any old way, but kind of follow the direction of that fur. You're going to get a, and I'm going to put a little black into here so he looks more like a tabby. Okay, here's my little kitty here. And I'm going to put this little shadow in his ears. And put some more gray fur up here around his ears. And maybe some of these, kind of a furry cat here, so I'm going to make a few hairs sticking out on here. And then we're going to go back, and we're going to add his little cat eyes. He's like a little fierce cat here. And so there's our little pussy cat. And that, remember, we used a oval for the head, a circle for the muzzle area, triangle for the nose, smaller ovals for the eyes, and triangles for the ears. And then we just add his body where he's laying down here, and we can add this little blue blanket that we saw in the picture. And here's our little cat taking a nap and ready to have his adventure in the story that we're gonna, that someone might want to write about the pussycat's adventure. So have fun drawing with basic shapes. Remember, you can use these basic shapes with animals, with objects, and indeed even with human beings. Welcome. This lesson on learning how to draw people in proportion is part of a series of lessons on developing your character as part of the story sculpting unit. This lesson is for grades 4 and up. For primary children, it is sufficient to just show them that the legs and arms are long and not little short flipper things, and to demonstrate that with live children in the classroom. This lesson will work well with a live model and a yardstick, as well as using the accompanying video. Or you can watch the video and teach the lesson yourself. We suggest that if you use the video, that you pause the video at each step. Okay, the first step in this process is your children need to make a head. Now, you'll notice my little rectangle here is made so that the body will fit within this viewing space. So simply you want to have the children to have a piece of paper. I would suggest used file folders work really well. And the important thing is, now like this head's going to be way too big to fit the body in, but you notice that it's a rectangle that is sometimes called the golden rectangle because of the relationship between the side and the length. You don't want to end up with something like this, where the rectangle is a really long and skinny one, and conversely, you don't want to end up with a square. So once the children have cut their head out, the head becomes the unit of proportion for the entire body. So let's all now cut a small rectangle out, and your rectangle can be as large as up to an inch or so. Sometimes a good rule of thumb is the length of your little finger. You can go that way. So let's all cut out our little heads now. All right, now once you have the head, if you take your sample child that you're looking at, if you have a little model that you can take a look at, measure that student's head from approximately below the chin to the very top of the head, very, very top. And you should have a measurement. Oftentimes this is around 8 inches, 8 to 10 inches, depending on the student and how old they are. Now, once you've done that, here's a little magic thing. Let's take a show of hands in the classroom. How long do you think the body is? Is it 1 head long, 2 heads long, 3 heads long? Let's take a vote. Okay, how many of you said 2 heads long? Well, you were right. The body is approximately 2 heads long. Now notice I have a little mythical line drawn right here. That's your waist. Your waist is not at the halfway point. And notice another relationship. Your body is approximately the length of your head wide. Let me say that again. Here's our head. This is the length, and the body is about that wide. And it's 2 lengths long. So let's go ahead now. And a simple way to do that is to go back to that piece of paper that you cut the head out of, and you can just cut a nice long strip right down here, and you'll have a piece that you can measure out. I'll just show you right here. You can measure 1 and put a little pencil line, and then again, and then trim it off right here, and you'd have, I'm going to make an approximate, and you'll have a little body ready to go. So let's all notice I have them labeled. You really want to do that. You really want to label your body parts, because pretty soon you're going to have a whole lot of little rectangles and you're going to forget which is which. So we now have a head and a body. So if you want to pause the video and make sure that everybody has a head and a body that's 1 head wide and 1 head length wide and 2 head lengths long. Okay? All right, everybody back, and everybody's ready to go because they got all their head and their body. Now, what do you think we need to make next? Well, let's make the neck, and we'll just sort of put it aside, but a neck is just a simple little rectangle, and you can make it about as wide as the head. Sometimes people want to make it really narrow and skinny like a little stick, but really your neck is is wider than that. Now some of you may be thinking, wait a minute, this body looks like a robot. It's all rectangles. Well, we're just looking at the basic shapes right now. We're going to be rounding it off later, but for right now, let's stick with those rectangles. Now, we're going to do the arms, and let's take our live model again and have that live model put their arms down beside their body and bend at the elbow. And we discover that your arms, your elbow is about even with where your waist is. So let's take, now that we have this marked, let's take, I'm going to borrow this little piece right here, and I'm going to cut a piece that's approximately as long as the body is from the shoulders to the waist. And then I'm just going to simply cut it in half. Now I have two upper arms, and here they are labeled. And so let's put the body back together again, and we have two upper arms ready to go onto. Now, if you'll notice right now, this is about as long of an arm that a lot of children draw. They draw these very short, what I call little flipper arms. And it's because they think, well, the arm isn't that long. But really, we're not gorillas, but our arms are pretty long. Okay, now, how long is our arm from here to our wrist bone? Anybody have an idea? Do you think it's as long as your upper arm? Is it shorter, or is it longer? Let's measure on our live child and find out. Well, you just did the measuring and you found out that the forearm, the arm that goes from here to your wrist, is not as long as your upper arm. In fact, if you did a little measuring, you'd find out that your forearm is about the same length as your head. And so we're going to put our little forearms right on here, and one of them is labeled, and there's our little forearms for our little body, and we're going to shove him up a little bit so that his legs are going to fit in. Now we've got him, and we can use just a little small rectangle can be the hands. We'll put a little hand on there for right now. Now we need to do the legs. Now let's go back to the body is our basic measurement at this point. How long do you think your thigh is? Do you think your thigh is as long as your upper arm or your lower arm? Let's have a show of hands. Okay, now let's measure it on our live model. What did we find out? Okay, we found out that the thighs are actually about as long as your upper arms. So let's put our thighs on our little man right here. Here's his thighs. Okay, now your lower legs are thinner, but they're about the same length with a kneecap in between. So we're just going to kind of leave a little space there for our knees. There's our little man, and of course he's missing his feet. Now here's a really amazing thing. If you take your shoe off, or you take the live model shoe off, and you measure the shoe against the forearm, you'll find out that your foot is about as long as your forearm from elbow to wrist joint, except for boys who are about ready to grow. That's pretty true. And so your foot is as long as your forearm, and your forearm, what was it? It was as long as your head. So amazingly, we can add his feet, and there's our little person. And we're going to have him do some sort of movement. And I'm going to have him kicking a soccer ball. So I'm going to bring his foot up here, and I have a little ball, and he's kicking the ball, and he's kind of, let's see, he's kind of running here. So he's going to, and he's kind of keeping his balance a little bit, and his head's bent forward because he's looking down to see if he's kicking that ball. And here he is kicking the ball. Kind of a strange little person. Now you're saying, but he still looks like a robot. Well, you're right, he does. But we're going to do a little magical trick. I'm going to take a piece of regular paper, like, oops, moved his head. This is the tricky part. And I'm putting it back on here. And we're going to put this right on top. And if you can see in there, it's kind of a shadow of a person. We're seeing that blue through the white paper. Now we're going to take a little brownish color. This kid's been out in the sun a fair amount. And we're going to draw around the, and I'm going to give him some, we're going to put him in a red shirt. His arm just moved on me. You can glue these down if you wish, and then you'll just have one pose. If you leave them loose like this, you have to kind of contend with things scooting around on you, but you can change his pose. And I'm going to kind of make adjustments. His leg just moved on me too. So here he is, and now we're going to round off his elbow. He's kind of, I don't know what in the world he's doing with that hand. And he's putting his hand out like he's running here, and we're going to put him in some blue shorts. And he's running along, and we'll put his legs here. And we could put him in shoes in a minute here. And he's kicking the ball. And what we have now is an action figure, and his body proportions are pretty natural at this point. His shirt's a little long, he's got saggy pants, I think, and we can color him in. And this is a good way for you to really get an understanding of how the human body is put together and the proportion of the human body. Another thing to really learn about is that most of you, except if you're in a growth spurt, you are in perfect proportion to yourself. So you might sometimes feel, well, you wish you looked like somebody or somebody else, but you're really perfect to yourself. So I'm going to put his little hair on here. It could be a girl. I keep saying it's his. Let's make it into a girl. Girls play soccer. So there she is. And she's off and playing and ready to go. Let's review again the important things to remember. The important thing to remember is the head is the unit of measurement that we use in this whole procedure. That the body is 2 heads long and 1 head length wide. That the upper arms are as long as the body is from the shoulder to the waist. And that the lower arms are as long as the head. And when you stand at attention, you'll notice that your wrist bone comes basically at the end of your torso. So if it's any longer, you'd look like a gorilla, but that's where it comes on the human body. Your thighs are as long as your body from your shoulder to your waist, and your lower legs are the same length, and your foot is as long as your head. So that's a pretty amazing thing about the human body and the amazing proportion. The Greeks back in ancient times discovered this, and they felt that this was the golden measurement. The golden rectangle was based on the human body. So anyway, boys and girls, have fun making people in proportion and discovering how math works with the human body. And we'll see you at the next lesson. Goodbye. Welcome. We're going to learn today how to draw a face in proportion. We're not going to be doing as much drawing as you see here in this picture, but the basic underlying structure is what you're going to learn today. If you take a close look at the Indian face here, you'll notice that the face, you might think that the eyes are at the top, but in reality, as I move this picture down, you realize that he's got a hat on and his head goes clear up here. So the face is this whole oval right here. So we're going to start off first learning how to place the eyes, nose, and mouth and where to put them on that oval so you can make your faces look more realistic. And as you get older, you can work to drawing just like this. This section of the video is designed for the beginning artist, and we're going to show just step by step where to put the different facial features. And we're going to use a brown crayon so that we don't obsess about erasing mistakes and so forth. Remember, this is just a practice picture. If you make a little mistake, just draw another line, and then on your next picture you can worry about making it more perfect. I've been drawing for years and I still don't make it perfect. So anyway, there's a little mistake right there. We're going to cover that little mistake up with hair. And now the first thing is we've got an oval for the face. And remember I said when we looked at the Indian that at first it looked like his eyes were way up here, but then we realized that he had a hat on and his head continued up here. So in reality, your eyes are in the middle. If you're not quite sure, your teacher could take a student in the classroom and you can measure with your fingers and you can find out that indeed your eyes are about middle of your head. So we're going to draw like an imaginary line just so you can see this, and you'll be doing this later. And there's an imaginary line going this way so that we can find where that halfway point is. Now the first thing we're going to draw are the eyes. And sometimes a mistake that students make is that they draw the eyes too small. So I'm going to draw the eyes for this person pretty large. And actually, you'll discover that they make the person look pretty realistic and it's not overly large. Now, some of you might try to draw a little eyelid, and that's like a second line that goes above the eye. And we're going to draw some eyebrows just above the eye. And the eyebrows start, and I'm going to kind of go over here and add a little extra eyebrows. They start even with the eye. So that's where our eyes are. Our eyes are in the middle. Then